Today we're back doing another video. Today we're back doing a video called. Now, I'm pretty sure y'all are aware that we reacted to medieval times. I don't remember what they did, type of stuff they was doing back then. We reacted to that video a couple days ago. Today we got something different. We are straying away from that, and we're reacting to scary historical events that actually happened because I feel like this is gonna be interesting. You know what I mean? That whole thing wasn't the title. It was just scary historical events that actually happened. You know what I'm saying? So if y'all can find this video on your own, I might put this shit in the description. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I think we just finna get into the video. I ain't even gonna lie. Let me make sure I turn this joint up so y'all can hear. You know what I'm saying? I gotta be careful with that, cause in my videos in the past, bro, like you can't really hear nothing. So it's like, I remember I used to have to edit my videos together, like no bullshit. Like back before I had a Mac, my nigga, like I had to really sit here and go on the computer, get my clips off. I had to download a video out the video I was watching, and then I'll record my face on this, but like the other way, the facing part, and then boom. You know what I'm saying? I had to edit all that together. But let's not make the intro too long. I just want to explain to y'all how I used to do that.
History stories. If you're well versed in American history, then you know the story of formerly alive President Abraham Lincoln's big night out on the town in 1865. Even if you're familiar with the historical artwork around the matter, you might ask yourself, who the heck are these other people? You know Lincoln, sure, and of course the guy using Lincoln's skull as target practice is John Wilkes Booth. But also accompanying the president that night were his wife, Mary, close friend and Union Army Major Henry R. Rathbone, and his fiancée, Clara Harris. Lincoln and the gang were out celebrating the recent Union victory of the American Civil War and were seated in a private viewing box to the right of the stage in Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. What do you think of the play, dear?
So my question is, did they like clean up the blood after he got assassinated, or like is this still there like bloodstains? And another thing I want to know, like, did it get abandoned after that? Because it had to have one abandoned. So they turned it into a museum.
Then Confederate sore loser John Wilkes Booth entered the booth and took aim, blasting the president point blank in the head with a .44 caliber lead ball from his single-shot Derringer pistol. At the sound of the gunshot, Rathbone spun around to see Lincoln collapse in his chair with Booth standing in a cloud of smoke. He immediately leapt from his seat and charged the assassin, but Booth came well prepared. In the struggle, Booth was able to equip a dagger and severely slash Rathbone's arm before leaping from the box onto the stage. Right before jumping, Rathbone was able to grab Booth's coat, causing Booth to lose his balance and eat shit, fudging up his leg in the process. Despite being in a packed theater of witnesses and bystanders, Booth evaded capture for 12 days. However, his...
Come on, bruh.
Need to run Windows on your Mac? Parallels Desktop makes it simple to integrate Windows apps into your macOS workflow.
I don't know, bruh.
Install Windows in minutes and stay productive without hassle.
What the fuck?
However, his plan was successful as President Lincoln died from his injuries just 9 hours after the fatal game of tag. Rathbone, who passed out due to blood loss but eventually recovered from his injuries, personally placed the weight of the president's death on his shoulders. He believed he should have been able to prevent the assassination, and because of this, he bore immeasurable guilt every day of his life, absolutely destroying his mental well-being to the point of insanity. After resigning from the military 5 years later, he struggled to find work until eventually given a consul position in Germany by President Arthur. Rathbone's now wife Clara had hoped that the change of scenery would do him some good. Rathbone's mental health continued to spiral, resulting in him lashing out at his young children and violently threatening Clara. After 13 years of mental deterioration, the breaking point had finally been reached. On December 23, 1883, Rathbone attacked his children in a fit of madness in their home. Clara had rushed to protect her children, but was fatally shot and stabbed by her husband. Instead of continuing his onslaught, he turned the knife on himself, stabbing himself in the chest 5 times. Despite the failed seppuku attempt, Rathbone survived his wounds, with police finding him...
Yo, this nigga had to be on drugs or something. You mean to tell me you just... Like, listen, I don't think a knife can be that fucking fast. Like, from what I heard, people said that how you can get the realistic feeling of stabbing something or somebody is scooping ice cream, right? Like really hard ice cream, and the spoon just goes in, right? So how the fuck did he do this 5 times, especially on himself?
Covered in blood, claiming that there were people hidden in the walls of his home whispering to him. He was arrested and charged with the murder of his wife. During trial, he was officially declared insane by court doctors and committed to an asylum where he died 28 years later.
Damn, 28? I thought he was going to die right there. How the fuck he survived 5 stab wounds? What in the
Henry Howard
fuck?
Holmes was an American con artist and the U.S.'s first documented serial killer. Born the lesser cool named Herman Mudgett, Holmes attended the University of Michigan's Department of Medicine and Surgery in 1882, where he allegedly would accompany his professor in various grave robbing activities as a way to supply the school with fresh bodies for examination and dissection. It was here that Holmes developed a slight obsession with death, and seldom does such an obsession lead to good things. After graduating medical school in 1884 and being upgraded to Dr. H.H. Holmes, he moved out to Chicago to work in a drugstore, which he eventually bought outright from the owner.
What is drugs?
The proceeds from that store helped to fund his newfound hobby that would soon evolve into something much more sinister. Holmes drew up plans for a hotel, one designed to be a death trap for all who entered. Not the best business model for return customers, but hey. Several contractors and architects were put on the job with a steady rotation of firing and hiring. Now, it's believed that this constant turnover kept everyone from knowing his true design intentions, with no one designer knowing the full scale of the operation at any given time. When it was fully built, the hotel had 3 floors, with the first one being mainly retail and including a new drugstore. Holmes used the hotel to accommodate travelers during the upcoming Chicago World's Fair in 1893, which attracted millions of people to the area. Now, according to legend, the hotel contained secret rooms, trick hallways, and trapdoors and torture chambers throughout. It was in this hotel that Holmes would allegedly trap and torture his victims, eventually selling their bodies to the local medical school as a way to satisfy his macabre desires while still making bank. During the World's Fair, Holmes would charisma check dozens of wealthy women to spend the night in the hotel for rest and relaxation, but they would never be seen again.
Damn.
It is believed that as many as 50 women went missing during the World's Fair, all linked to what Holmes would later call his murder castle.
Damn.
In August of the same year, the 3rd floor of the hotel caught fire. While no one was injured, the fire destroyed most of the 3rd floor, but Holmes had an ace up his sleeve: multiple insurance policies. But, like insurance companies do, they refused to pay out and accused Holmes of setting the fire himself and engaging in insurance fraud. Holmes, obviously angered by such accusations, quickly skedaddled out of Chicago. And over the following years, he continued to dabble in insurance
I
fraud
can't find
with his
my bed,
friend
bro.
Benjamin Peitzel. For his next trick, Holmes had suffocated Peitzel with chloroform and burned his unconscious body for a life insurance payout. What's even worse is that through extreme coercion and manipulation, Holmes had convinced Peitzel's widowed wife to place 3 of her 5 children into his custody. And over the years, he would murder all 3. Holmes had forced the 2 older children, 13-year-old Alice and 9-year-old Nellie, into a trunk, drilled a hole through it, and plugged it with a gas line, suffocating them. He then buried their bodies in a cellar in his house. As for the 3rd child, 7-year-old Howard, Holmes drugged the boy, dismembered, and burned his body, with only some teeth and bones being the identifying factors. Eventually, the children's remains were discovered,
Damn.
leading to Holmes' arrest and subsequent conviction
So he
of
was
the
a serial
Peitzel
killer. What the
murders.
fuck?
He was sentenced to death and hanged in 1896,
As they
but not
should.
before confessing to over 200 murders thanks to his murder castle. But Holmes was regarded as a habitual liar, and experts believe that there was only enough evidence to link him to 9 murders. Still a high count, but not nearly the 200 that Holmes had claimed. As for the murder castle, it is confirmed that the stories about the design and the use of the building were widely sensationalized and over-exaggerated by local media. Sucks from a horror standpoint, but still makes a good story nonetheless, right?
I like making my podcast. I don't like making short clips of my podcast. So the AI chooses the best
Get out my
clips.
face, bro.
Take a look at this face. Seem familiar at all? If not, then you're useless to me if I start joking. Anyway, this is a death mask, a plaster casting of the face of an unidentified woman who was pulled from the River Seine in Paris in the late 1880s. She became known as Le Connu de la Seine, or the unknown woman of the Seine. After being fished out of the French River, her body was placed in the Paris morgue, which, at the time, put nameless corpses on full display for the sake of identification by the general public who happened to be passing by. Oh hey kids, look, it's Grandma!
What the fuck? Wait,
Because of this strange, but
Wait, so they covered the bodies up. Okay. But what else did he do for the women?
effective
right?
method, the morgue became a popular tourist and public gathering spot, often
wonder if
referred
that
to
shit
as
still-
the only
Bro,
free
that
theater.
shit. Yo, I'm really gonna bet money that that's a museum now. It has to be. They can't just shut that place down. Like, that's history, my nigga.
In Paris. This
What the
particular
fuck?
woman, however, was a bit of an oddity. Medical examination showed no visible wounds or signs of a struggle, so it was concluded that her death was self-inflicted, with her age being estimated at just 16 years old. But it was her calm, serene expression that caught the attention of a pathologist at the morgue. Since he couldn't take a picture to make it last longer, he decided to instead cast a plaster death mask of her face as a way to immortalize her. Creepily enough, but also to no surprise, many Parisians thought that having a
Wait,
face
so
of a dead
she
woman
looked
in
like
their house
that at 16 though? That's like a 40-year-old. That's what I thought that was, like a 40 or 30-year-old woman. I don't even think a 30-year-old woman like that, but
would be the
damn.
coolest thing since
That's
sliced
40.
baguettes.
That's like my grandma.
So countless copies of the death mask were made. From an artistic standpoint,
Yo,
many
that do
interpretations
not like a 16-year-old. That look more like somebody grandma, gang.
claim that the young woman's demeanor expresses a calm control over death, being accepting of its inevitability rather than fear. From a non-artistic viewpoint, you have some dead girl's face hanging on your wall. Over the years, her face had inspired several literary works, pieces of art, and even fashion. But where have you seen her face before?
That's
Well,
crazy.
believe it or not, chances are you've actually unknowingly given her mouth to mouth. Because hers is the face of the CPR training doll, which is used in almost all CPR training courses worldwide since 1960. Sure, that might be creepy,
That's
but
some
at least
evil
it's
shit for real, bro.
thematically appropriate.
Why?
World War I was absolutely brutal. It was the forefront of many new innovations in warfare like tanks, heavy machine guns, and manned aircraft. All effective technologies developed for the sake of boosting your own kill count. But another, more sinister tactic was soon deployed onto the battlefield: chemical weapons. Perhaps the most widely used was mustard gas, but others were used too. For instance, chlorine gas, a yellow-green gas which, sure enough, looks like a stereotypical funny fart cloud, but packs a lethal punch. This story begins in September of 1914, where German soldiers were tasked with taking the Russian-occupied Auschwitz fortress. It was constructed as a Russian Empire border defensive structure against German attack. And boy, was it good at its job. German Empire units had repeatedly tried to penetrate the fortress, but were told no through heavy retaliatory gunfire and artillery. Despite facing multiple defeats, stubborn German soldiers refused to give up so easily. 3 assaults were conducted on the fortress over the course of a year. The first saw German infantry losses of about 6,000, while Russian forces only suffered 139. The second assault saw a continued bombardment on the fortress by German artillery, but the Russian soldiers didn't budge. This caused several month-long standoffs, which eventually resulted in German retreat. However, the third assault was to be the one to huff and puff and blow the fortress down. Returning to the fortress in August of 1915, the German forces now had fresh soldiers, even heavier artillery, and multiple canisters of chlorine gas. On the defensive side, the Russian line was only 900 strong, but they still took their chances against the impossible odds. After waiting several hours for favorable wind conditions, German soldiers bombarded the fortress with the deadly gas to flush out the enemy. The Russian soldiers, unfortunately, had no suitable protection against the gas and had to improvise, covering their faces with the best thing that they could come up with: rags soaked in piss. To no surprise, this proved ineffective. The soldiers were severely incapacitated by the gas, and now they smelled like piss. As a quick science lesson, when chlorine gas is inhaled, it reacts with the residual moisture in your body, forming hydrochloric acid, which starts to corrode your internal organs. In short, it causes big ouchies on the inside. With this mechanism of action being well known, the Germans were certain of their victory and began to infiltrate the fortress, but were met with a horrific sight. Despite suffering in complete agony, covered in blisters and coughing up lungs and blood, the Russian soldiers still stood their ground and continued fighting. The German
Damn.
troops, of course, scheißed their Hosen at the sight of the seemingly undead Russians and fled from the fortress in a complete panic, with some even stumbling into barbed wire in the process. The rest of the German troops immediately hightailed it out of there. Although successful, most of the Russian defense died from the gas. Those who did survive barely got by the skin of their whatever they had left. Sadly, Russian troops preemptively demolished most of the fortress as Germans began closing in for a fourth time later that month.
Are you having trouble trying to keep up with your professor? You've got to try Otter. Here's how it works.
Out of my face. Syphilis zombies
Just as a
of
quick
Renaissance.
warning, I'm going to be showing some graphic medical photos of real syphilis patients, so if you don't want to see
Hey,
that,
bro.
click away now. There you go. Usually when you hear the phrase Italian Renaissance, you think of high-class society, revolutionary innovation, and lots of statues of dudes with their dicks out. Well, allow me to throw a wrench in
Come
that
on,
perception
bro.
by
Come on,
introducing
man.
you to the
Bro, don't-
concept of syphilis zombies. Syphilis? Like the guy with the boulder? No, silly. Syphilis. Like the STD. Quick backstory. In 1494, the King of Naples, Ferdinand I, died of butthole cancer. If his name sounds familiar, it's because he's one of those evil kings that I covered in a previous video, so you can check that out if you haven't. Wink. Anyway, Ferdy's son Alfonso II took his daddy's throne but was quickly put in a state of check by French King Guy Charles VIII, who claimed that he had claim to the throne because of his noble Angevin bloodline. Or so he claimed. Little Alfonso was like,
I
well,
feel
how about
like
you
the
just take...
main reason them niggas was getting a bunch of like, you know, stuff like that going on with themselves is because, like we heard, they wasn't introduced to real cleanliness until the African kings or whatever that is. Like the African people like came over there and like showed them how to actually clean themselves. You know what I'm saying? That soap and stuff didn't come from them. Like on some real shit.
Milan instead. Your lawn? No, Milan. Well, why would I want your lawn? I hate mowing. Are you serious right now? After some clarification, King Charles agreed, and with 30-some thousand soldiers, invaded Italy, took over Milan, but felt unsatisfied. Oh, sweet. Charles took Milan. Oh, he's heading this way too. Why is he heading this way? Naples was also taken. With such a successful campaign through the peninsula, the French army, which consisted of Spanish, Swiss, Flemish, and even Italian soldiers, decided to celebrate. And you bet your sweet balls that meant women and alcohol were involved in medically inadvisable quantities. When you have a bunch of people from all over Europe quite literally come together in one city, there's going to be some interesting results. This one was syphilis. Actually, it was kind of like a super syphilis.
Yup, and that's because of how unclean they was back then, bro. Them motherfuckers did not know how to clean themselves, my nigga. So that's what happened.
As historians generally agree that the strain that went around was much more severe than its modern cousin that we are more familiar with. That is the rhetorical we, of course. This meant that the disease was much more contagious with symptoms that were much more severe. Since it was the Renaissance, let me paint you a picture of how it all went down. Your first step is finishing up your very consensual physical time slot with a local woman of the night. During your bi-weekly wash, you notice something around your own peninsula. You have genital ulcers, small open wounds forming around your tender meat log. But that worry is quickly put to rest as you develop a bad fever, multiple rashes, and muscle pain. Get used to that because you're going to be like that for a few months. As you continue to live your now much more miserable life, you discover the formation of big, stinky, painful sores and abscesses across your body. These sores start to penetrate deeper and deeper into your tissue until your flesh quite literally rots to the bone. The bacteria eats away at your skin, your eyes, your nose, and your lips. You don't die just yet, but you wish you would. For months or even years, piece by piece, you fall apart, with chunks of your body just sliding right off. Got your nose. Ooh. Thousands of people were walking around like this day in and day out.
Is that
Eventually,
a child? What the fuck?
the soldiers were expelled from Italy and returned to their respective homes. Within a few years, syphilis ran rampant through most of Europe, and by 1520, the so-called French disease infected Africa and Asia as well. So remember, fellas and fellettes, never engage in sexual relations with a 15th century French soldier in Naples. But you can still finger that subscribe button, and you can
15th
also watch...
century explains that them people did not know how to clean themselves back then, bro. And you gotta understand, like this, they was basically letting zombies off that ship. How the fuck did it get to Africa, bro?
Some more videos. I'll see you over there.
That's crazy. Damn. I ain't gonna lie, yo. I did not enjoy this video for real. Y'all probably did, but not me. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna lie though, we out. That's the end of the video, you know what I'm saying? Y'all be safe out there, and I don't know what the fuck this shit was, bruh. That's nasty, man. What the hell? I ain't gonna lie though, we out. We bippin'.